لا إله إلا الله 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 لا إله
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I hope that you are all well, inshallah. Jazakallah khair for taking out the time and joining us. And I think when it comes to Ramadan, there is a lot of masala questions that we often have, and even if it was answered for us many times, we tend to forget by the time the next Ramadan comes, and then there's so much of doubt and confusion and questions and subhanallah. So even though it's a bit late right now, like 13 days in, this was very, very last minute where we decided let's do this class. So alhamdulillah, we have Mu'allima Fatima Hafaji. She has over 19 years of teaching experience, mashallah. And subhanallah, she's going to cringe when I say these things. But, I've never really seen a teacher like her, like a mu'allima, subhanallah. Her students, they absolutely adore her. They love her, mashallah. Her adult students randomly become her friends. And her students she's been teaching for so long. So some of them are married, university, but they still keep in contact with her. They invite her to their weddings. They always like Appa, so she's like a friend, and she really, teaches the deen with such like love and that nurture. So even if you do see her students, you see that love of for Allah in them, and it's only as a result of her 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 teaching and the way she conducts classes and everything like that. So if you are looking for a madrasa for your kids, she is in the Auckland Park area in Johannesburg. She offers in-person classes as well as online classes. So if you're looking for classes for yourself as well, um, you can contact her and you can either do classes online or in person, and you won't go wrong. So let us welcome her. Assalamu alaikum, Mu'allima Fatima.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I definitely wasn't expecting that. So, Jazakallah khair, you definitely took me by surprise. I thought we were doing a fifth class. I didn't realize we are going to start with the emotional start. So, Jazakallah khair. I think may Allah Ta'ala make me as you see me, truly. So,
I mean,
Alhamdulillah for that. I'm so
Jazakallah
excited to
for
be a part of this. So, Jazakallah for including me.
Ameen. And Jazakallah khair um for for taking out the time to do this class with us today. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure many ladies will appreciate it and benefit.
Alhamdulillah. And we did have like a discussion about it prior to Ramadan, but I think the way Ramadan went by so quickly, I mean, we're already halfway through. But I think it's taken us by surprise even, but still, I think these are relevant questions irrespective of how far through we're in Ramadan. So Alhamdulillah for the opportunity to get to have the conversation, the discussion.
Alhamdulillah. So yeah, I think let's just
We
get
can start.
straight into it and get started. So I'm going to mute myself and I am going to give you
Okay.
the floor. Bismillah.
Bismillah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم ربي زدني علما وارزقني فهما ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا. So the idea behind today's class was to address some of the questions that came through, and then also to address the most common questions with regards to hayd, with regards to ghusl, and with regards to some of the things that we might consider whether our fast is broken or not in terms of those kind of aspects. If you guys do have any questions, we're not going to take questions as such, but if you do have any questions, I think it would be okay if you put it in the chat for now. If there is anything that we can address in the class, then we'll do so. If need be, then we might host another class based on the questions. The reason why we asked for the questions prior to the class specifically was because we wanted it, I specifically wanted to have like verification with regards to each response. So I wanted to like be able to source adequate hadith or verifications basically in that regard. So inshallah, I'm going to go through. If there is anything you need clarification on, you can put it in the chat as we go through them, right? So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First, I'm going to start with some of the most common questions that people have with regards to the hayd, with regards to menstruation, and with regards to istihada, which is irregular bleeding. And whether this discharge counts as menstrual blood or not, and especially with dealing with different colors of discharge. So I think one of the things, even with myself, I remember like initially, and especially every time it comes to Ramadan, it's somehow you might know the answer the previous Ramadan, but it's just like you want to verify every Ramadan just to make sure that you're not missing out on your fast or whether you should break your fast, or all of those kind of perplexed situation that we sometimes find ourselves in, and especially as you get older and there's those hormonal changes and imbalances and things like that that can affect your cycle. So the first thing I want to cover is the colors of discharge and whether it counts as haid. So some of these might be very basic for you, or some of these might be brush up information for you. But I think I would like to iron out all of it. Just not sure where everyone's level of knowledge or understanding is, right? So both the Hanafi and the Shafi madhab, alhamdulillah, consider certain colors of discharge as part of haid if seen within the menstrual time frame. So I'm going to cover the Hanafi and the Shafi madhab, because I don't know, whether or the majority of the people are Hanafi or Shafi, but just so that both groups have an understanding, right? So the colors that counted as haid, meaning if you see this within your normal menstrual cycle days, number one would be red. Number two would be black. So a thick and dark blood. So generally, it wouldn't be black in specific, maybe like a really dark red as well. And number three is brown, dark brown, or close to the color of blood. And number four is yellow, which is a busted or dark yellow, and this is only if it appears during your menstrual days. So normally people wouldn't think like the yellowish discharge is part of the haid, but this is if it appears during your usual menstrual days, then this is going to count as your haid as well. And the evidence of this is from the hadith where Atiyah says that we did not consider yellow or muddy colored discharge after becoming pure as anything significant. Until obviously it was mentioned that if it's seen within your days of haid, that it counts as your haid. Colors that do not count as haid, if seen after your purity is established, is yellow or brownish discharge. After seeing complete purity, this is considered as istihada, and you must resume your prayers. White discharge indicates the end of haid, and a woman must perform ghusl before resuming prayer. Right? So according to the Hanafi ruling, yellow or brown discharge within the 10-day limit of your menstruation is still considered as haid. So let me just clarify this. If it's within your usual haid time, right? Your 7 days, your 10 days, your 5 days, whatever it may be, and you see any of these colors, it's going to count as your haid, right? And again, there's evidence that cites this. I can share all of this on the group afterwards if anyone wants this. If a woman sees yellow or brown discharge within habitual cycle days, it is considered haid. But if she sees it after her purity, it's istihada. Right? According to the Shafi ruling, if it appears within the 15-day limit. So according to Hanafi, the limit of your haid period is 10 days, and according to the Shafi madhab, the limit of your haid is 15 days. Right? Okay, how to keep track of haid and istihada, and I think this is a very important one, and this is why I wanted to have it as part of the discussion as well, because a lot of times what happens is, especially with the hormonal balances that are happening more often, imbalances actually that are taking place more often than not, and you're seeing it start not from like a pre-menopause or menopause situation in a lot of women. We're seeing it start from like girls as young as like 15, 16, 17. They're having these kind of like hormonal disruptions that are taking place as a result of many factors: the environment, the food we eat, emotional imbalances. Those kind of things are all affecting us hormonally. And so one of the things I definitely suggest doing is keeping a record. Alhamdulillah, we have access to different kinds of apps nowadays. If you're like me and you're a pen and paper person, you can keep it in the back of your journal, your daily planner, whatever it may be, or even just keep a separate note section on your phone and just keep track of like when did your haid come and when did your haid end every month, right? Especially if you see that these changes are happening more often than not, right? If you're a regular, then alhamdulillah for that, you don't have to keep note of it. But once you see like an irregular pattern, start keeping track of it so you know, right? Especially with regards to like your ibadah, your salah, and your soul. So generally, I mean, Ramadan is once a year, I mean, for 1 month, but then your salah continues during the remainder of the year. So to keep track for specifically, for that reason. So this first thing I would say is how to keep track is to determine your habitual cycle. So whether you have a fixed cycle of 5 days, of 7 days, it can be between the two, it can fluctuate, it can go from 6 days to 7 days. So your cycle would be between 6 and 7 days, right? So if you have a fixed menstrual cycle, example, 7 days every month, you follow that even if bleeding occurs over those amount of days. So if some months you see you're not bleeding for 7 days, you're bleeding for 8 days, but your regular cycle is 7 days, then 7 days is going to be your cutoff. You will make ghusl, and then you will start reading your salah, even if you're bleeding afterwards. So this is why it's important to establish what is your regular amount of days, right? Any blood beyond her usual amount of days is considered as istihada. The second step would be to use the 10-day and 15-day rule, right? So according to the Hanafis, if bleeding lasts more than 10 days, anything beyond her usual cycle is istihada. This is if you are someone who bleeds for 10 days, right? You get people who regularly bleed for 10 days, but then some months it's going beyond that, right? So according to the Hanafi, your limit is 10 days as a reminder, and Shafi, if bleeding exceeds 15 days, the extra 15 days are istihada. I'm going to get into the ruling with regards to istihada, right? But as I said, if you need clarification, anything, please put you're welcome to put it in the chat, right? And the evidence of this is when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told Fatima bint Abu Huwaish, he said menstruation does not last beyond its normal days. So when you recognize your usual days, stop praying only for that period and then resume, right? This is mentioned in Sunan Abu Dawud. And the step 3 would be check for clear or white discharge. So just to backtrack, step 1 would be to determine your habitual cycle. Step 2 would be to use the 10-day and 15-day rule. And step 3 would be to check for clear or white discharge. A white discharge indicates the end of menstruation. If unsure, you can sometimes insert a piece of white cotton or wipe, with a tissue or something like that. I feel these kind of things are very important for like young girls to know, especially because sometimes they can be very confused, as in any discharge counts as your period, right? So to clarify, by that means, so obviously if you wipe and it comes out clean, your menstruation has ended and you will now take your ghusl. Just the one thing before I continue, so I just want to say the evidence for this is from Aisha radiallahu anha, where she says, do not rush to take ghusl until you see the white discharge. So not everyone gets the white discharge. Sometimes you'll have the brownish discharge towards the end that it still counts as your period if it's within your period day, and then it will just clear out altogether. Just regards to ghusl within Ramadan or while you are fasting, we do not gargle. Generally with ghusl, you have to gargle to the back of your throat, which is not it's not a necessary gargling for wudu in the for wudu purposes. But in ghusl, you're normally supposed to gargle till the back of your throat, and you put water into your nose up to your nostril, because those two are the first of ghusl, and the third first of ghusl is to wash the entire body where not a single hair remains dry. Using soap, not a first of ghusl. Right? So sometimes when people are in a rush and they have like limited time, they think, okay, ghusl is going to take me so much of time. It takes us so much of time because we do all the other things we normally do when we're showering. But if you need to make a quick ghusl, just being under the water and your whole entire body is wet, including the hair on your head, and you do a thorough gargle and the nose clean. But again, in Ramadan, you don't do the back gargling. You just gargle to the front of your mouth like how you usually would do in wudu, and you just put water into your nose like how you would do in wudu. You don't snuff up to the nostril, right? Because those are aspects that would break your ghusl. Obviously, if it happens unintentionally, it does not break your ghusl. I think that's the golden rule, and we're going to come to that because a lot of us are concerned about aspects of when things happen unintentionally, right? The third thing is ruling for women with continuous bleeding with regards to istihada. Women who have chronic istihada, which is abnormal bleeding. So generally, it's a sign of of like a deficiency within your body, or something is wrong, or dietary changes that need to be made. Generally, it's not a major issue, but it's something that should be taken into consideration if it's happening consistently and long term, right? Um, Remember, Allah Ta'ala has made our body in such an incredible way that like it gives us signs when something's wrong. Like even I tell my students, like, if you're having hormonal issues, your pimple breakouts can tell you where your issues are stemming from. Like, if it's in your chin area, and I know this is not my forte, so I'm not going to go into details with regards to it, but like your chin area is generally an indication that you're having hormonal imbalances with regards to like your cycle or your womb or things like that. And so it's a nice thing to give them information in that regard too, so that we also aware, or for us to have that kind of information, so we know which areas we need to work on. And generally I feel like it's dietary based. Like if you make changes to your dietary, but also emotional factors really do play a part. And I think Fatima Munshi has her course based on the cycles, and how it affects you. So that would be something definitely to look at doing or joining. Okay, so what do we do in istihada? Because now we have istihada, and now we need to know, okay, how do I address this with regards to my salah and in regards to my ibadah? So generally, obviously, every aspect of tahara, we relate it in terms of like our ibadah, right? So when I have istihada, what do I do in this situation? So you make a wudu for every salah. So this is a necessity, right? This is part of your ruling with regards to istihada. If you are experiencing istihada, which is bleeding outside of your period or just continuous discharge or whatever it may be, you are now going to make wudu for every salah. Right? You can obviously use a liner or pad to manage your bleeding, but you don't need to replace it, because now you will. It's also the rule of ma'zur, which is bleeding due to an illness, right? So you don't need to replace it for every salah, but you do need to make a fresh wudu for every salah. So you pray your salah even if your bleeding continues, which sometimes can feel weird because now you're used to not reading salah when you're bleeding. But if it goes beyond your normal amount of days, you are now going to make a fresh wudu for every salah, right? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told a woman with prolonged bleeding, perform wudu for every prayer, and then pray even if blood continues to flow, right? And this is authentic narration from Sahih al-Bukhari. So according to the Hanafi ruling, a woman istihada must renew wudu for each prayer time. If her bleeding stops, she should pray during that time, right? According to the Shafi ruling, she must perform wudu for each prayer, but may pray multiple nawafil prayers within the same prayer. So the ruling with regards to the wudu is actually similar, same for Hanafi and Shafi, where if you have to make a fresh wudu for every salah, but now you don't need to make a fresh wudu in that salah time if you want to read Quran, if you want to do nafil ibadah, like nafil salah. So your wudu will last for that salah duration, unless normal things that break your wudu breaks your wudu in that time. So your wudu it's not like now a superpower. Your wudu is going to last for all other aspects that might break wudu usually. So it's if you pass wind, your wudu will break. If you go to the bathroom, your wudu will break. But generally, if you make a fresh wudu in that time, it will last for that salah period, unless your wudu breaks for other reasons other than the discharge, right? I hope that clarifies it, inshallah. Um, Okay, so basically just my thoughts on this here, just a wrap up on this segment of the Hayd rulings, is keep a journal of the start and end dates of your menstruation, check for white discharge to confirm your purity, and for irregular cycles, use your past habits as a guideline. And obviously, if you yeah, I think that generally irons out the general questions that we get with regards to Hayd. I feel like it covers that. If there is again anything in specific that we didn't cover, um, yeah, please do feel free to ask your questions. The next thing I'm going to go into is regarding Janaba rulings, right? So Janaba is the Arabic word used for intercourse. So I'm going to use this word throughout this segment of it, right? And you do get people, I've had people messaging me during Ramadan with regards to this. It does get confusing. So just to iron out this for everyone, Um, does janaba invalidate the fast? So janaba is considered hadathul akbar, which is a major impurity, and hadathul akbar, and I'm sure the kids who do the fiqh books in madrasa are familiar with this. If you've studied with them for exams, you get hadath akbar and hadathul asghar. Asghar is when you are in need of wudu, so the smaller impurities, like going to the bathroom, passing wind, vomiting a mouthful, those kind of things, right? Bleeding, those break your wudu, right? Bleeding from a wound. Whereas Hadith al-Akbar is the things that make ghusl a first requirement, and one of it being janaba, right? Being in the state of impurity, a major impurity. So being in the state of janaba does not break your fast. This is one thing we need to understand, because a lot of people query whether they can fast while they're in the state of janaba. Yes, you can, and I'm gonna get to the purpose the further. I'm going to explain this further, right? So if a person is in janaba due to intimacy, a wet dream, or ejaculation before fajr, their fast is still valid. So I'm going to get into a bit of details. If anyone's uncomfortable, um, you're more than welcome to leave the class. But I feel like this is essential because a lot of people have questions with regards to this, and it's not ironed out for them, right? However, they must perform ghusl. So your ghusl requirement basically is not for your fast. You don't need to be in a state of purity to fast. However, you do need to be in a state of purity to read salah. So you can start your fast. So if you woke up before Sehri, whatever it may be, and you had Sehri, and now you want to know, is my wudu valid because I'm still in the state of janaba? Yes, your fast is valid. However, what is your next first? Your first for that day was the first of fasting, right? Your next first is the first of reading Fajr Salah. So if you are not in the state of purity, you're committing a major sin um, by leaving out your first salah. So you can perform your ghusl later if your salah, your fast is still valid. But then don't forget that your Fajr Salah is still a first obligation. So after Fajr time sets in, you still have enough time. There's still like an hour or so that's still considered Fajr time. So you can make your ghusl within that time and then read your Fajr, and then you're perfectly fine, right? Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha and Salama reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would sometimes be in the state of janaba at the time of Fajr due to relations with his wife, and he would perform ghusl and fast. Right? Because you still have that time to make ghusl and read Fajr. So basically, if someone wakes up in janaba, in the state of janaba after Fajr, their fast is still valid, but they should do ghusl before Fajr if possible, right? So it is not mandatory to perform ghusl before Fajr for the fast to be valid. I just want to repeat that. However, you must do ghusl before performing Fajr Salah, right? But delaying your ghusl before Fajr without a valid excuse beyond Fajr, sorry, not before Fajr, delaying your ghusl beyond Fajr without a valid excuse is sinful because one cannot pray in a state of major impurity. And Ibn Umar radiallahu says if someone experiences a wet dream or intimacy at night, they should perform ghusl before prayer, but the fast is still valid, right? And this is an authentic hadith from Sahih Muslim. So you can do ghusl after Fajr if you oversleep, but you must do your ghusl again before your Duha Salah so that you're not delaying another Salah or missing another first Salah. Does water enter ghusl, the body during ghusl, break the fast? Right? So that's another question that people often ask. Does water entering the body during ghusl break the fast? The answer is unintentional water entry does not break your fast. So anything, the ruling is unintentional. Obviously, Allah Ta'ala is the judge of whether, Allah knows our intention in that moment, but anything unintentional. So if you eat while you're fasting and you completely forgot that you ate, you're right, you can have a whole meal. Alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed some people, right? Then you can have a whole meal while you are fasting, and you completely forgot. And I know people who have done this, um, And that's your risk from Allah, Alhamdulillah. And afterwards, you realize that you were fasting. Your fast is still valid. A lot of people think, oh, if I ate something, someone put forward the question where I used the miswak and a bristle went, I swallowed a bristle by mistake. That was one of the questions that came forward yesterday. And I swallowed a bristle by mistake. Is my fast broken? No, it's not broken because you didn't swallow the bristle on purpose. If you collect saliva in your mouth, right? Like at the moment, I'm quite heavily congested, so it can affect your, you like your saliva and your breathing and all of that is affected, and then you have excess mucus. So obviously none of that is breaking your fast because it's not an intentional action that you're doing. If you're collecting saliva in your mouth, and I know this sounds like a weird scenario, but it could be possible that there's somebody doing this. If you're collecting saliva in your mouth and you're collecting it with the intention to quench your thirst, that breaks your fast. Because I mean, although our mouth is producing saliva all the time, alhamdulillah, and I say alhamdulillah because it's such a ni'mah, to have that kind of, like, where you don't it doesn't affect your level of dryness. And I was speaking with somebody recently who actually struggles with it. So as a result of that, she actually keeps gum in her mouth, obviously not in Ramadan, but outside of Ramadan, for the production of saliva. And I just think, subhanAllah, so many things that we don't realize Allah Ta'ala has taken care of in terms of risk, like the risk of providing saliva in our mouth, that we don't even appreciate and value, what a ni'mah it is, subhanallah. So as I said, if you're collecting it with that kind of intention to quench your thirst, that actually breaks your fast. But yet there's saliva being produced in our mouth all the time. So if water accidentally enters the mouth or nose whilst you are performing ghusl, as I said before, the fast is not broken as long as it was not intentional. And sometimes, alhamdulillah, we're so conscious of this when we're fasting that we'll spit out like a million times just to make sure there's not even like a speck of water that was left behind in our mouth. Intentional gargling or excessive rinsing of the nose, which is deep snuffing, right, can break the fast if water goes down the throat. So if we gargle often, aside of like from wudu and ghusl, just to clear, like, to, I wouldn't say quench a thirst, but to like take away the dryness of our mouth, that can actually invalidate the fast. Again, probably if you're someone who does struggle with lack of saliva, then that might be that would probably be a different ruling, right? The Nabi has said that exaggerate in rinsing the nose unless you are fasting. So exaggerate meaning that is when you rinse the nose up till the nostrils, and then you get that like ticklish feeling. I always tell my students like a tickling feeling in your nose, and it kind of be like kind of irritable in the moment, right? But you don't do that when you are fasting. So according to the Shafi ruling, if water reaches the throat during ghusl, even unintentionally, it breaks the fast and qada is required, right? So that's the difference between the Hanafi ruling. The Hanafi ruling, if it's unintentional, it does not break the fast, although it's makruh. So makruh is something that's disliked as far as possible to stay away. Often we're under this misconception that makruh means that, okay, I can do it once in a while. No, makruh is if I have no other alternative but to do that. Like, for example, when we make wudu, we use our right hand to put water into our nose, and we use our left hand to clean inside our nose. But say, for example, somebody has a cut or wound or plaster on their hand, and they cannot use their left hand to clean their nose. In that case, it's permissible to use their right hand because they have a valid excuse and a valid reason, right? So makruh is unless you have no other situation um, or no other alternative in that situation, then you can do that, right? Um, so basically, the best practice to help abstain from any intake of water while you are fasting is to rinse lightly, right, or to gargle lightly as well. Okay, so the next one is with regards to the discharge of semen, right? So does semen discharge without intercourse due to uh, fantasizing or a dream? Does it break the fast? So basically, it depends on how this happens. If it's a wet dream, which is not intentional, right? You had a dream, your fast is not broken, but ghusl is required. Remember, there are three different levels according to Imam Ghazali with regards to fasting. I'm just going to briefly touch on this, right? The first level is the basic fast that we all know, which is the fasting of the from food, from drink, and from intercourse, right? During the day in the month of Ramadan. The second level of the fasting, which we all at, alhamdulillah, right? But the second level of fasting is where we should all aspire to be at, which is fasting with the eyes, right? Which is a deeper level of fasting. So fasting in terms of what we are visibly looking at, listening to, in so even if you're reading normal books in Ramadan, like that's why people are, alhamdulillah, have this level of awareness in Ramadan. Even if you are watching TV outside of Ramadan, which is still a haram. It doesn't make it any less haram outside of Ramadan. But obviously the sins are multiplied just as good deeds are multiplied. And this is why we are so conscious of this within the month of Ramadan, right? But the thing is, what we are watching, what we are reading, all of that is things that we are supposed to be conscious of in Ramadan. And this is why, alhamdulillah, people do the social media detox also, with that level of consciousness that, I might be unconsciously ingesting something. That's what happens when you scroll mindlessly. You end up unconsciously ingesting, right? And so the second one is, so when it's a wet dream, it's not intentional, but the second one is unintentional discharge, which is as a result of basically lustful thoughts. Your fast is not broken, but ghusl is required again. Right? So in both these situations, with regards to a wet dream, with unintentional discharge as a result of lustful thoughts, your fast is not broken. But this is where there is no physical stimulation, right? Um, so and the third one is intentional ejaculation, and this is through masturbation or physical stimulation. Your fast is broken and qada is required, right? So the second two, your fast is not broken, but where it's intentional via masturbation or physical stimulation, your fast is broken and you have to make up that fast. The Nabi has said, Allah has forgiven my ummah for what they do by mistake, forgetfully, or under coercion, right? Meaning that the third one is intentional, and that is why you will not be um, exempted from that. You will have to make up that fast. So basically, wet dream just to summarize it, a wet dream or involuntary discharge does not break the fast. However, intentional ejaculation through self-stimulation or any physical act does break the fast and requires qada. So this is even in terms of like intimacy between the husband and wife. The Nabi has says that during the fast, um, it's like obviously if it's going to cause where there's physical stimulation or ejaculation, then that breaks the fast. So even if it's in that situation, right? Um, okay, so I'm just gonna do quick summary of what we've covered with regards to Janaba and Ghusl in Ramadan before we go to on basic rulings. Your fast is valid even if you wake up in Janaba. Just do your Ghusl before your Salah. The second one is wet dreams do not break the fast, but Ghusl is required. Avoid deep rinsing of your mouth or your nose whilst fasting to prevent accidental swallowing. Number four, intentional ejaculation breaks the fast and requires qada. Number five, delaying ghusl before Fajr Salah is sinful but does not break the fast. Okay, I wanted to be um, as in-depth as possible, while at the same time being concise. So inshallah, I hope that helps anyone who had any of those kind of queries, right? So now I'm going to go into basic general rulings or general questions. Actually, the most asked questions. The one that I just want to cover before I forget is that someone asked the question. I think it was with regards to observing Taraweeh Salah, is it better to perform Taraweeh or cover up for Qadha Salah instead of reading Taraweeh? So the general consensus within the Hanafi and the Shafi madhab is that it is better to read your Qadha instead of Taraweeh. So if you have Qadha Salah, but maybe balance it out. maybe do 8 rakats, and I'm not saying 8 rakats because you can join the 8 rakats brigade. I'm just saying, like, for equal, or even 10, right? So you can do 10 rakats, and then the remainder 10 rakah, you can do your qada salah. So the priority is your qada salah, but try and also with the intention of continuing in the sunnah of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to try and do some of them as your tarawih salah. And this is with regards to the Hanafi and the Shafi madhab. Both of them are in agreement with this, right? Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. What breaks the fast and what doesn't? What does eating or drinking intentionally break the fast? And the response is yes. If someone eats or drinks on purpose, the fast is broken, right? So intentionally, your fast is broken. And what if you eat or drink by mistake? No, if your fast is still valid. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has said that if someone eats or drinks forgetfully, then he should complete his fast, for what he has eaten or drunk has been given to him by Allah. As I said, a rizq provided from him from Allah, right? And this hadith is from both Bukhari and Muslim. Okay, does vomiting break the fast? And this I see every Ramadan, people get confused with regard to this because they think that if they vomit, it breaks my fast. No, if you vomit intentionally, your fast is broken. But if it happens unintentionally, and nobody really vomits intentionally unless they have um, bulimia. Is it bulimia? I'm not sure. Where you put your finger in your throat. May Allah Ta'ala protect us and save us. But so if it happens unintentionally, as example, you're feeling sick, you're feeling nauseous, or if you're expecting and you try to keep your fast and things like that, your fast is still valid. However, you can break your fast if you're feeling weak or sick, but you'll have to make qada of that fast, right? Does taking medicine break the fast? Swallowing pills or syrups break the fast. So anything that you're ingesting in that way, injections for nutrition like IV drips break the fast, right? Non-nutritious injections, example for pain relief or vaccines, do not break the fast, right? So do your vitamin C, vitamin B, glutathione, whatever it is, kind of injections that you're going for, those are all going to invalidate your fast. Those are going to break your fast. However, if a person has like chronic pain and they have to take an injection for that, or they have to take like a flu injection because they're really not well, that does not break your fast. The next one is, does applying eye drops, ear drops, or using perfume break your fast? So these do not break your fast. However, remember, for women, it is better it's not permissible to wear perfume outside of your home, right? So that, but it doesn't break your fast. It's just an impermissible act. So yeah, so using eye drops, ear drops does not break your fast. What if you use an inhaler or nebulizer? So the situation where scholars differ with regards to using an inhaler or a nebulizer, for example, someone who has asthma, but many say that inhalers do not break the fast because the mist reaches the stomach. If someone has a chronic illness, example asthma, they can use it and make up the fast later. Does bleeding break the fast? Intentional blood loss like cupping breaks the fast. So you're not allowed to go for cupping whilst you are fasting. Um, However, I'm not sure if this applies in all the different madhabs. I'll just double check on that. But it does break your fast. And also remember, you're gonna be quite weak while you're fasting if you are also drawing out blood at the same time, right? Unintentional bleeding, like a cut or nosebleed, does not break the fast, right? Does swallowing saliva break the fast? No, swallowing normal saliva does not break the fast. If someone collects and swallows saliva deliberately, it can break the fast. Does brushing teeth or using a miswak break the fast? No, but if toothpaste is swallowed, the fast is broken. So as far as possible, the scholars say to avoid brushing your teeth whilst you're fasting. So if you generally we brush our teeth before at the time of suhoor, and then if you go back to sleep afterwards or whatever it is that you wake up, it's better not to brush your teeth or to use a miswak to brush your teeth, just in case you end up swallowing toothpaste. Now, in in the event, generally when you do brush your teeth, sometimes some toothpaste, you tend to swallow some toothpaste. So rather to avoid that kind of mistake happening, we should rather abstain from brushing our teeth, right? But do use the miswak, because I know our mouth smells like musk in the eyes of Allah, in the eyes of angels, but not in the eyes of people, right? Or to the sense of people. So preferably try using a miswak, or even just brush with a toothbrush, maybe without the toothpaste, or like with small quantity of toothpaste. Does intimate relations break the fast? Yes, if someone has marital relations during fasting hours, their fast is broken and they must do kafara, right? So you have to do kafara because that was an intentional uh, act, right? So, meaning intentional kafara is not where you do one kadafa. So, if you have, and this is an important one to note, because obviously this is something quite intentional as compared to eating food unintentionally or, um, doing something unintentional. This is intentional. So, your kafara is to fast for 16 days consecutively. And how many of us are able to do that? I mean, sometimes we can't even manage the 30 days of Ramadan. So imagine like the kafara is sort of like in order to expiate an expiation of your sins. That's what the term kafara means. So to make up for that act that is, it's not generally a sin, but while you're fasting, it's considered a sin. Um, to make up for that, you have to fast for 60 days consecutively. Obviously, for a lady who has a period, then she'll fast right up until she gets a period, take that break, continue fasting. A period will come again, take that break, continue fasting until she has made up the 60 days, right? If someone has a wet dream unintentionally, their fast is not broken, but they do need to do a ghusl, as we mentioned that before, right? What does not break the fast? So I'm just going to continue. I think, is it okay if I continue, Fatima, or must I stop there?
I think you can continue. It's fine. If anyone needs to leave, you are welcome to leave, and you can just catch the recording after the class if you need to. But I think let's cover as much as we can, inshallah.
Okay, okay, Bismillah. So I'm going to go on to the next one. What does not break the fast, right? So can I taste food while fasting? And the answer is yes, only if necessary, but it should not be swallowed. So a lot of scholars say that you can put it on the tip of your tongue. And generally, this ruling is if you have like a very temperamental husband, may Allah Ta'ala protect us and safeguard us, inshallah, ameen. So this is in that case. I think generally it would be that you shouldn't, because obviously our tongue has taste balance on it, taste buds. That's what it is. So you can't just put it on the tip of your tongue and taste it. And then, so in this case, it is permissible, but it shouldn't become like a normalized thing, right? Can I take a shower with fasting? Yes, but be careful not to swallow water. Can I get an injection? As we said, if it's for medical treatments, not if it provides nourishment, right? Nutrition, sorry. Can I donate blood while fasting? So it is permissible. It is discouraged. Actually, it is permissible because it does not break the fast unless it leads to extreme weakness. But it is discouraged because it may cause weakness, right? Um, okay, so just for example, if someone forgot they were fasting and if they took us, so these are like sort of like scenario based kind of questions. So if, for example, you were fasting and you forgot you were fasting and you took a sip of water, do you have to fast again? No, your fast is still valid. I know often if you're cooking or something like that, sometimes in that moment you slip up and then you end up taking a bite of something or putting a piece of something, like if you're busy making something, it's a tendency, to do that. Your fast is valid. Obviously, if you realize it while it's still in your mouth, spit it out in it to rinse your mouth at the same time. Um, if I brush my teeth but accidentally swallowed some toothpaste, is my fast broken? Yes, if swallowed intentionally or carelessly. If I had a nosebleed while fasting, do I have to make up my fast? No, your fast is still valid. If I woke up after Fajr and realized that I hadn't eaten suhoor, can I still fast? yes, because suhoor is recommended but not mandatory for fasting, right? So you don't have to have sehri. I think most of us know this. Obviously, it's a very, very great sunnah, and there's multiple hadith that state with regards to the barakah and the blessings of waking up for sehri. I was saying in my ladies class yesterday, it's not about having curry khichdi for sehri or not having curry khichdi, whatever is your preference, right? If you want to have a whole 5 course meal, go for it. But the sunnah is to wake up for sehri. So you get some people who just have water and a kajur, but they are still fulfilling the obligation of seri in that sense, like the sunnah of seri, actually, not the obligation of it. Um, and so, Alhamdulillah, there's no specifics of what to have. And if you think about the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that was probably what they did have for seri, because that's all they had it at certain times for months on end, right? And then dry bread for like iftar. So there's no specifics of like what you have to have for seri, or you have to wake up and be like fully functional, and that it's just the thought of like, okay, I'm going to wake up for Seri. And the thing is obviously not to go back to sleep, to stay up for Fajr, and then after that, or to not to miss Fajr. So you can't go back to sleep, and then to make sure you wake up for Fajr. Um, okay, so that's where um, I'm at with everything that I prepared for today, Alhamdulillah. A lot of it was questions that people hadn't asked, but I just wanted to cover like the most basics of it. Um, so if anyone has any specific questions, you're welcome to ask now if you'd like, and I'll see if I can answer any of them.
There was a question yesterday that the sister
It
asked.
was the two that you sent me, right?
Yeah, and then there was the one about Tarawih. Like, is it bad?
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
that one where I said that it's according to both Shafi and Hanafi, it's better to read your Qada, Salah instead of the Taraweeh, but to try to balance it out. So maybe 10 Taraweeh and then 10 of your Qada Salah.
perfect.
So obviously, Qada Salah would take
I'm
the
paying
precedence.
attention with it.
Recite, relatives, is it better to recite in the evening or read Tarawih? So recite what? Are you talking about like Quran? Yeah, so Tarawih would take precedence in that regard. Because remember, Quran read in Salah is more, the merit of it is much more, the reward of it is much more. So when you're reading Taraweeh, especially if you're joining the Taraweeh Salahs, they're finishing a para up to a para and a quarter para a day, a night. Um, so definitely the more merit would be to, especially because Taraweeh is a sunnah within Ramadan. It's not a sunnah outside of Ramadan. We don't read Taraweeh outside of Ramadan. Um, I would, it definitely would be to have to prioritize Taraweeh um, rather than your Quran reading. Not rather in that sense, but rather Taraweeh, and then your Quran you can try and put in here and there, um, if possible, right? The other question was regards to the bristle with regards to Miswak, and I did respond to that one.
Yeah,
And
that
then
one
someone
was
asked with
good.
regards to the Janaba rulings, which we've covered.
Mhm. And we just and then did you cover the one? If one is able to fast, is unable to fast due to health or strength, can one pay kafara and fast it back when one is able to? Yeah. All that.
So if it's for health reasons, then you would, if in that moment, right? So the ruling with regards to this is that if for a certain time you have an illness and it's quite, I'm not talking about like a flu, right? So like chronic illness or something quite severe, like maybe cancer, or I mean, something quite severe. And there's at that moment, it seems like a bleak situation, and you're not sure if you'd make it, if you'd have the capacity to make qada of it. Then yes, you can pay for it. You can pay. You can, you can pay for those fasts. Um, but if you regain your strength, then you should try and make qada of it. Even if you don't manage to do all of it, to try and do as many as you can. So that's the ruling with regard to that, right? So you can't pay for it at the time you feel like it's a hopeless situation. Not hopeless as in, in a negative sense, but just like you don't think you'd be able to make it up. But then if you do feel like Allah has granted you your health or your whatever it may be, then you can make qada of it, inshallah. Okay, I think we
Okay,
can stop
any
there.
other questions? There isn't, then we will end it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Inshallah. And then perhaps like the people who view the recording might have questions post, then we can perhaps do another one, inshallah.
inshallah. So
Okay.
we could do another one if we get a decent amount of questions. And if not, then you can still send through your questions. Please, it should only be related to fasting and Ramadan, because this is the topic. You can send it through and we can answer it for you. Obviously, outside of the session, just send you
Inshallah.
a reply back to you via message, inshallah. But if we do have like a lot of questions after, then we will do another class so everyone can benefit, inshallah.
Inshallah, yeah.
Jazakallahu khair, Mu'allima Fatima. I think this was definitely very needed, and even for me, it was it was a good brush up. Basically, it's like you've learned this, you sort of know it in your mind, you know it, but then there's certain things that you tend to forget, and you need that brush up, especially even like with regards to the cupping. I subhanallah, a lot of people say that it is permissible, but I think there's so many different opinions, but
Yeah.
majority
I
is
think
of the opinion that it's like makruh as well, that it may break your fast, so it's better to stay away from it.
yeah. Yeah, alhamdulillah. I think the understanding also is to understand that, and that's why I wanted to do Shafi and Hanafi, so we understand that there's different rulings, even for those of us that are not Shafi. But I mean, there is four different madhabs. So, but we have to stick with what the madhab that we follow, and I think in South Africa, the majority is Hanafi within the Johannesburg region,
Yes.
and then Shafi within the Cape Town
Mm.
areas. But I mean, people are migrating all over nowadays, so it's very mixed. But Alhamdulillah, we all need the brush up, even for myself, even preparing for the class was a brush up for myself. So I'm grateful for that. Jazakallah khair to you for hosting this and for always doing, such phenomenal work for the people, for the community. I have to say for your community, because you really have a community. You have a community worldwide. So Alhamdulillah, may Allah Ta'ala
Subhanallah.
accept from you and just continue with the incredible work that you're doing, inshallah.
Ameen, ameen, ameen. May Allah Ta'ala accept and reward us all. And yeah, we really appreciate it. If you want to get into contact with Mu'allima Fatima for any classes, she has an amazing class on a Monday evening and Thursday evening. It's called Rohani Qalb. It's to deepen your spirituality. It's obviously for ladies only. It's a nice, small, intimate class. So it's like your own community, and I think it's so special. So if you want to join those classes or you want to obviously get in touch with her for tajweed classes, hifz classes, just to also basically brush up on your basic fiqh, Islamic history, seerah, whatever it is, you can just, I don't really want to share her number on here because
Yeah.
subhanallah,
Recording.
it's very
But
public
you can follow
after.
my Instagram page then. I think
Yeah.
Madrasa and Walton. And then inshallah from there you can get in touch with me. Um, yeah.
So yeah, you can follow her page. It's called Madrasa on Walton because like she's based in Auckland Park. Or you can just send me a message and request her number and I will share it with you, inshallah. Jazakallah khair to all of you. I hope this class helped you and answered your questions and that you are now more certain and clear and you are ready to stop having all the doubts and the uncertainty, inshallah. And yeah, if you do have any further questions, please do pop us a message and we will get back to you. Have a beautiful day, inshallah, and may you have a fulfilling Ramadan for the rest of Ramadan. May Allah Ta'ala keep you all in His mercy, protection, love, light, guidance, and grant you all afiyah, khair, barakah, lutf, and most important, a deep connection with Him. And until our next session, class, whatever it is, fi amanillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.